Hello everyone and welcome back to Ministravaganza 2025. We are here today for the Marvel Crisis Protocol roadmap and some fun gameplay surprises. I'm Will Schick, the VP of Creative Development and Strategy for Atomic Mass Games, And I guess we're just going to kick things off right away here. So let's dive in and take a look at some cool stuff that's going to be coming out here in the next few months, early 2026, I guess, for Marvel Crisis Protocol. These fine armored lads and ladies were shown off at the Adepticon 2025 roadmap, but of course we wanted to take a re-look at them. We've got some cool reveals for them as well. But of course, Ironlad, Ironmonger, Kang the Conqueror, and Rescue are going to be coming early next year to the game. And let's go ahead and start off with Ironlad. So Ironlad is a new 3-threat mid-ranged attacker. He, of course, has some pretty solid durability thanks to neurokinetic armor and temporal divergence superpower, which allows him to reroll the attacker's dice as he manipulates the time stream. For those in the know, we all know that Ironlad is destined to become Kang the Conqueror, although he often tries to work against that destiny. He is going to be a good inclusion in several affiliations as a new character. And a very fun one to kind of utilize and play around with his suite of different abilities and all of that stuff. Ironmonger is the next one we want to take a look at. This guy is unique in probably an interesting and somewhat unexciting way until you really start to think about it. He's the first 3-threat character to be on a 65mm base. And of course, he comes loaded to bear for offense. He has a lot of really great attacks, some high durability. But that 65mm base, along with his ability to place himself, don't underestimate it. He is very potent in Criminal Syndicate rosters, as we saw in testing and everything else. And a lot of our effort actually went into making sure that a 3-threat on a 65, with the affiliation selections that he winds up in, was well balanced within the objective grab game and all of that stuff. But Ironmonger quickly became a staple in many of the testers' lists and rosters, and we found him to be a very fun and very cool character. The miniature is glorious. He comes with a lot of different optional bits, so if you want him to have him shooting the missiles or doing different special effects, our team under Evan and Marco went really full bore on Ironmonger and all of the different things you can do with that miniature. Perhaps my favorite from this set, maybe outside of Kang, who we'll talk about in a little bit, is Rescue. Rescue is really another first, as Ironmonger is the first 3-threat on a 65. Rescue here is the very first kind of true focused healer for Marvel Crisis Protocol. As crazy as it is to say, 6 years into the game and its development, but we now have kind of a DPS healer coming to the game with Triage. She can chip enemies down while healing her allies back to health, but Medevac's really where it's at. This was a really awesome ability idea that we were able to iterate on and pull in. The idea that she can effectively place a character, pull them out of danger, heal them, do all this different stuff, makes her really strong at doing what she does, which is keeping her team going and alive. She became really good friends with She-Hulk and Hulks, as you can kind of imagine, for her ability to keep those big characters on the table for a lot longer. And she fits pretty well into everything in her affiliations, one of them being A-Force as well. And the last one, who we, of course, we save for last, is Kang the Conqueror. Kang, we're not quite ready to show you what he's got yet in terms of his character card, but we did want to share, I think, what really stands out for this character are the Team Tactic cards. And these obviously go back a bit to Ironlad as well, since they're Nathaniel Richards, not Summer. I'm thinking Nathan Summers, which is Cable. Nathaniel Richards tagged. The team overall on development, Andrew Dursum, Ben Ransom, primarily did some great exploration on how to take these Team Tactic cards, take the idea of chrono manipulation and all the nutty stuff that Kang does, and use the round tracker as something to track, to be able to borrow health from the future to the present and how these things interact with each other, the press your luck mechanics that are inherently involved in these. Just really kind of brings the whole Kang experience home as this centerpiece kind of character that's going to be the linchpin for some squads the players are going to build, and really drive home the fact that he is the main character wherever he shows up when you're playing with his full suite of tactic cards, with all of his different abilities and everything else. So really excited to be able to present more about this character, to have players really start to understand what Kang as this premier Marvel threat is going to bring to the game, and then also just to be able to explore new design space when it comes to how these tactic cards interact and what we're able to continually innovate and come up with to make the game more exciting, more thematic, and to tell the story of these Marvel characters on the tabletop itself. Another pack that we showed off at AdeptCon this year was a return to the Marvel Cosmos with Adam Warlock, Moondragon, and Quasar, Phyla-Vell specifically as Quasar, as there have been many who have held that mantle. These characters, glorious sculpts, some of the best that have come out of our studio, and that's saying a lot when it comes to the engineering skill and just the incredible posing, the effects, everything. I mean, Moondragon is of course awesome, but that Adam Warlock, I mean, woo! I'm not a huge Adam Warlock fan. I love that miniature, to be quite honest. And speaking of Adam Warlock, let's talk about this character. Let's take a look at his rules and what he's bringing to the game. So one of the really fun things about this box is it does bring back an oldie but a goldie from the early days of Marvel Crisis Protocol, the Infinity Gems. And so, of course, Adam Warlock is the big foil to Thanos in the Infinity Gauntlet saga, and we really wanted to show that with this character. And so one of our big development like pushes for him was to show that he is the life to Thanos' death. And so a lot of the beats, a lot of the ideas for abilities that kind of came out of it was in looking at Thanos and then saying, okay, what's the inverse of that? How do we kind of play on the idea that these are yin and yang characters and they push against each other? He also brings a brand new Infinity Gem that is specific to Adam Warlock. We really wanted to show off the fact that he has a high affinity, a unique kind of relationship with the Soul Gem. So he brings the bonded Soul Gem with him. He always does have to take it, or he wants to always take it basically with him. And this kind of like ties into his old power set and everything else that goes along with him. And then of course you have the opportunity and flexibility to bring along an additional gem if you so choose. Coming next, the Guardians of the Galaxy won't be the only affiliation getting reinforcements among the Marvel Universe. We also have some Asgardian reinforcements coming with Valkyrie on Lindale. We got a little error on that. That Aragon is Brunhilde's Pegasi. This is Valkyrie from the Exiles. So not the Brunhilde who has been released previously. She doesn't have her steed yet, maybe someday. Also known as Valk. And she is going to be coming as a mounted character on her Pegasi. Just another amazing miniature, completely knocked it out of the park. Super dynamic, looks great paired in tableau. I'm going to use my favorite word, tableau, with Malekith on his Bat Tiger. Her whole suite of abilities is all about mobility. She has some really great play patterns, pretty high ceiling to get everything to work out, but when it does, you can wind up just bouncing all across the board. Really dials in that whole feeling of like soaring through and charging through the ranks of the enemy on your mounted steed as you attack with all the different weapons and show off the warrior of legend that the Valkyries are. And the Warriors 3 rules not quite yet, but of course another intriguing character in terms of being 3 characters on a single base. We really like to do these with the groups that are, you always think of them together, right? I think there's always an argument that you could split them up. But when it comes to like the Warriors 3, it does mean the Warriors 3, much like the Wrecking Crew. We kind of envision them as the Wrecking Crew. This leaves us opportunity in the future to, of course, split those characters up and offer them individually for players who want to be able to take 1 or 2. But when really looking at these thematic groups where their strength is in their unity, is in their teamwork, this is a fun design space that I always get to do, and working on the Warriors 3 was also a really fun one. They'll bring a lot, I think, to Asgardian rosters as well, based on their threat level and everything else. So these pair will also be coming out sometime early in quarter 2 of next year, with all of the dates that we say on these streams, of course, always subject to change based on logistics, global, like shipping nonsense, everything else that goes on with the world. We try to get as close as possible. And with that, I think we have a pretty fun thing that we want to go to next. So I talked, if you were with us at the start for the opening ceremonies, I mentioned that one of the things we've been doing a lot as a studio is utilizing bandwidth to try and do different fun things to go back to some stuff that we used to do. One of those things was making really awesome trailer videos. Tony and Dallas worked really hard on this one. It is phenomenal, and we want to just kick off the next round of previews with a very cool cinematic trailer.
Comments on Pentacles. The future is not mutant.
All right. Well, whether you think that the future is mutant or not, we've got a lot of cool things to look at that fill both those roles. So let's start off with the mutants themselves. These were also previewed at Adepticon earlier this year. Danny Moonstar, Havoc, Jubilee, and Multiple Man will all be joining the X-Men ranks and also bringing a brand new X-Factor affiliation, with both Havoc and Multiple Man having some pretty starkly different leaderships on how to play that affiliation. Just a very fun set of characters. And of course, we finally get to tick off my classic X-Men shirt that was debuted when we first launched the X-Men at a Ministrav and revealed them. So Jubilee is now finally coming to the game, which means we have all of the core X-Men from my X-Men shirt. So kudos there. Very, very exciting. And I was going to bring the shirt, but then, I didn't, because it would be weird if I had to unbutton the official AMG shirt and just show it. It felt too much. Mutants overall, though, in Crisis Protocol, we felt internally had just been enjoying this dangerous sense of superiority for too long, and it was time to really dive in and start creating some countermeasures here to allow players out there who felt affronted by all of these mutants to be able to combat the threat. And with that, we of course have our new Sentinel characters that are coming in with Bastion, Nimrod, and Omega Sentinel. I believe Nimrod wound up in the case at Adepticon. If you got to see that miniature, kudos to you. It's phenomenal. The Bastion just looks amazing. Omega Sentinel as well. All of these characters, again, the engineering team just continues to level up over and over again when it comes to the posing, the dynamism of the miniatures, and just what we're asking of them to be able to do. The amazing artwork by Patrick Brown behind them as well. Josh Colon, our art director, continues to knock it out of the park with that. Bastion, of course, brings a brand new leadership wholly dedicated to the Sentinels affiliation that's going to allow them to be able to step up their game against those deplorable mutants. But it also gave us an opportunity when working on these characters to go back and revisit the original Sentinels to really redefine the affiliation for the modern age as a potent and fully fleshed out group. And so today, after the stream, you're going to be seeing a couple of new game content updates. The first of which that we want to talk about is a brand new character rebalance batch. And we can go ahead and take a look at those new Sentinels and how the Prime Mark IV and the Sentinel Mark IV have been updated for a brand new age and ready for Bastion to come in and lead them to victory against the mutants. Some of the big notes on these, and you can't see it here, but you will when the document gets posted. The injured side of these characters has been retuned to be a little more player-friendly, to offer some more opportunities compared to the previous one. And I think the favorite new addition, which we can see on this, is the new acceptable collateral damage superpower, which, as we were playing through, as we were looking at these things, how to make this affiliation work better, how to make these characters feel a little more seamless on the table. One of the big things is that because they had large bases, it was very difficult to place them on certain terrain densities and things like that. So now your big stompy robots can just do some big stompiness on those cars and things that get in their way and just take them off the table. So there's no hiding for those filthy mutants to be able to just sneak around and stop you from being able to place where you want to. This has an unintended consequence, or maybe an intended consequence, of when you're playing the Sentinels and you get to place it down and smash the train. It feels really fun. It feels really thematic. The Sentinels aren't the only ones in this rebalance update, however. You're also going to see fixes to and readjustments to several other characters. Cassandra Nova, another character within the Sentinels affiliation, has gotten a bit of a tweak and some updates as well. Dormammu, the Dread Dormammu, has also seen some updates and adjustments to how he plays, specifically with the leadership and when those things trigger. There's going to be a development article that's going to go into all the thought processes behind that, so you can look forward to that later today, along with the cards themselves. What I want to do here is pretty much just cover kind of the overview of what to expect, get you hyped for when those things post up on the website so you know what to expect. Emma Frost was another one in the rebalance. She perhaps has the most dramatic rework of all of the characters in this current cycle. We really wanted to dive in and take a look at her transformation mechanics, how that process was working, how that play pattern was going, also really define roles within them. So what you're going to see is that the diamond form and the telepathic form have much more reason, separation of kind of their roles, what they do on the tabletop. We amped up the durability of the diamond form by quite a bit, increasing her defenses in that form, increasing her ability to be offensive, and then smoothing out the way in which she's able to transform back and forth so that players have more agency and control over those two forms, and then you don't feel like you get locked in to a suboptimal play while still having to make important and critical choices in the way in which we envision that character playing. Last but certainly not least, there's a host of other characters who got really minor adjustments, mostly stamina increases, which have had a dramatic impact. We talk about this a lot when we discuss character rebalances and those kinds of things. Sometimes changing one stat by one digit or two can have dramatic impact and be all a character really needs. So characters including Professor X, Psylocke, Star-Lord, Yondu, S.H.I.E.L.D. characters like Nick Fury Jr., Black Widow, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Hawkeye all received small but impactful stamina updates. So you can look forward to having all of those available and game legal, ready to play and add to your rosters and start changing up how you view your squad compositions later today, following the conclusion of Ministrav as those things go up. In addition to the character rebalances, though, we also have some pretty significant core rulebook adjustments and changes to the overall gameplay. As always, as we always talk about, we're constantly engaged with analysis, with observation, with data collection. We're always watching for how the game is evolving, changing within players, and it is our goal and our role as developers and designers of this game to ensure that the gameplay is the best it possibly can be. And so we're constantly asking questions and debating internally, looking at testing various opportunities and differences to ensure that the game maintains at the cutting edge of the best player experience, the best Marvel tabletop miniatures game and narrative that it can be. We've often made small changes in the past. Today, as this new core rulebook goes up, you're going to be seeing a number of alterations, and we're going to go over some of the bigger ones now, but of course, always be sure to check out that article for the specifics and the actual core rules themselves to dive in and see exactly what's changed. The first one that I really want to discuss is all about missions. So how crisis cards are chosen, how missions are developed. A big thing that we're always watching for is making sure that turn zero, or the pre-planning of the game, including roster creation, squad picking, mission selection, is impactful, but it does not dictate the finality or the final outcome of the game. If you talk about percentages, you want turn zero to be somewhere in that 20% range, and then the actual gameplay expression to be the vast majority of the experience. As we continue to look at the game, see where the game is with all these new crises that came in, the new crises that we're going to be adding, what we really established and saw was that we needed to add more randomness, more chance to the mission selection process. This really goes back to the theme of Crisis Protocol, which is the idea behind the whole game is that you as the player, you as the crisis response team, are trying to adapt to a changing situation that you're never quite sure what it is. And that's why we allow you to bring a roster of 10 characters and build your squad beforehand from those assets. That's part of the enjoyment, and the planning is supposed to be that you, the player, are adapting to an unknowable situation. You might have close to perfect information, but you should never have perfect information. With that, one of the things that we looked at was how many crisis cards players had to bring to the game. And we've increased that to 5. This adds more variety. It makes it much harder for lists to be able to pick all the crises that they excel at because of the selection and the rotation of crisis cards. It gives us the ability to make sure that all players are playing with a couple of suboptimal if they're really skewing towards a single play pattern, or encouraging players to take a more all-comers approach and realize that they can't simply build a roster that excels in one aspect of the game without having some drawbacks to when this crisis selection happens. The other big thing is because we increased the randomness of the 5-card draw, making it less likely that you're going to get your optimal crisis card. We also wanted to involve the other player, your opponent, and yourself more in the selection process as well. So instead of simply drawing 1 from the deck, players now draw 2 from their appropriate crisis card deck that they selected, and then your opponent will pick one of the 2 cards that you drew to be the crisis card selection for either the secure and the extract. You will do the same for the other, and that is how mission creation will be made. What we saw in testing and with all of the iterations on the different systems that we tried is that this level of player choice was really well received among the testers, because it meant that if you saw a crisis card that you really didn't want to play, whether you felt that it was extremely bad for your roster selection of characters and the squad that you could do, you could veto it and you could play the other one. If you saw a crisis card and you just were tired of playing that crisis card, you could also say, let's not play that one, let's play this one. So it gives a lot of player agency in terms of being a collaborative, which has always been the idea behind the dynamic mission creation and crisis protocol system. And it opens up a lot of flexibility and opportunity. And I think it really, what it does great is that it puts a lot more onus on clever and knowledgeable roster construction, and removes that kind of turn 0 ability to be able to force the game in one direction. And now as players, we have to plan a lot more for all of these different opportunities. And it really feels like you're responding to a crisis, which has been really great. The last change that I want to talk about that kind of goes along with mission setup, and going back to that, you can't make perfect plans because you don't have perfect information, is there are now 2 priority roles in the game. There's the first one as normal, but now after deployment, but before the game begins, before the first turn of round 1 begins, players will roll for priority again, and the player who wins that will be the first player. This means that you no longer can guarantee, as you set up for deployment, that you know exactly when in the turn order you're going to go. So this, again, challenges players to say, are you going to set up for an aggressive, potent, midline objective grab, with the risk that you'll be exposed if you don't wind up going first? Are you going to set up more conservatively? Are you going to create backup plans? And that's really the key to all of this, is we want players to not only have plan A, but plan A through plan 27, right? There's a great Cyclops quote that Josh Clone gave me the other day. He said, we have plan 2 because plan B assumes that we only have 26 plans, and we have way more than that. And that's really the goal here as well. We want the game to be a dynamic challenge that players are constantly solving within the play of the game itself. Not just at turn 0, although knowing your turn 0 still gives you a strong advantage to the game. The other big change that I really want to highlight here for the game that is probably going to take a bit of adjustment for players, but I think has opened up a lot of really cool opportunities and really smoothed the gameplay out in a way that I think will be productive for the modern experience and moving us forward into all these great new characters we're talking about, is that damage from throws has changed. Now damage from throws is no longer based on the size of the object or character plus 1. It is now all a flat 3. So the baseline damage for collisions is all 3 going forward. What this does is it really brings in line the fact that games could feel skewed. Players felt very disadvantaged on certain tabletops that may have larger sized line of sight blocking terrain, but then faced characters that could throw that terrain, because hitting 4 or 5 guaranteed damage against most physical defenses could lead to a really bad experience. It could lead to a lot of predetermined outcomes, and we don't want that. On the flip side, size 1 terrain was kind of meaningless. You never really considered throwing it, because 2 damage against most physical defenses was really nothing. You could hope for an extreme outcome, but it wasn't a lot. By kind of bringing everything into the midline, making sure that everything is 3, we created a new system where the vast majority of physical defenses can hold up well against throw damage, but you're still guaranteed to get some damage through on the average, but it's not as extreme. Additionally, and I think the most exciting part from our testing was that this really opened the door for players to be able to add a lot more larger line of sight blocking terrain and movement blocking terrain without having to worry about what it meant for the game balance in terms of the characters that were able to throw it. This makes the tabletop and navigating the battlefield much more interesting, much more challenging. It gives you more opportunities to use cover, to use line of sight blocking, to hide your characters without necessarily having the distinct drawback of size 4 and size 3 buildings or terrain features being extremely deadly in certain matchups. It also allows for a lot larger density of terrain, which is something that we've consistently been looking at, wanting to implement into the game, because the more terrain, the more interesting the battlefield, the more choices players will make, and just the more overall tactical enjoyment that we've found within the game. So this throw change is going to be a really big one as well. It went through a lot of iterations, a lot of different testing. We're very excited about it. It does give a lift to characters who have throws like Magneto, who's able to throw, size 1 terrain now, a lot more dangerous. Characters like Spider-Man, who has size 2 throw, get to utilize their throws more often. Characters who can throw large just have more opportunity to throw things. You can also use those throws to remove that line of sight or movement blocking in a more strategic and tactical way. So again, this is one of those ones that may take a little bit of adjustment, but we've really seen the benefits of it, and we're excited for what it means for the game going forward. Additionally, there's a lot of other smaller updates and clarifications that are happening in the rulebook. Those will all be covered in the article. But perhaps the most interesting one, that is the last one that I want to cover, which is brand new to the core rules, is in Appendix 1, which includes rules for new objective token types that are going to be part of the upcoming Crisis card pack releasing early next year. This pack, as we showed at Adepticon 2026, or we teased at Adepticon 2026, is the Tolerance is Extinction Narrative Crisis card pack. This pack brings a brand new mechanic to Crisis cards with what are called source extracts. Source extracts, you can kind of imagine, are containers. They are the things that hold the extract. They're not the extract themselves. So what interacting with these objectives thematically does is it gives you the ability to pull like the vial out of it. So instead of grabbing the serum vial off the ground itself, players are now interacting with the dispenser and they're getting the vial from the dispenser. The source extracts are really interesting because what it does is it means that players can grab extracts, but most source extracts disappear at the end of the round or on other conditions when they're dropped. This means that players will constantly have to go back to source extract objective tokens to get more extract tokens to be able to score. So what it does is changes the play pattern on how we've seen extracts go, where you grab an extract, retreat with it, and then try to score it for the rest of the game. You now have to really think about your positioning, knowing that you're going to have to go back and multiple times throughout the course of the game over the number of rounds, interact with the source extract to make things work. You'll see on the other side that we have a brand new secure objective from the Zero Tolerance Crisis card pack. This one has a fun mechanic where one of the secures will turn off throughout the different rounds, so you always have to be dynamically adjusting. And these two create a pair in the narrative scenario campaign. If you've played War of Kings, then you know that in addition to just providing brand new Crisis cards that you can mix and match, there's also a narrative campaign structure that allows you to pair the Crisis cards together to tell the story of the comic event that the Crisis card pack is drawing from. This one represents the X-Men breaking into Bastion's containment facility and trying to spring their friends from his imprisonment. These two Crisis cards that you see on the screen are going to be made available as print and plays for you all to be able to download later today, and they are going to be game legal, so you can immediately start adding them to your games of Marvel Crisis Protocol and start to get used to how these source objectives really change the nature of the game and how they'll play when the other 8 exciting Crisis cards that have yet to be revealed from this pack do become available to you all as players as well. You'll also see that we're not done with the Sentinel goodness. Operation Zero Tolerance also introduces a brand new character in the Omega Sentinels, or the Prime Sentinels, excuse me. Omega Sentinel, Prime Sentinel. I always get those two mixed up. In the Prime Sentinels. So these are humans that have been metamorphed by Bastion's nanobots into Sentinel Hunters. Much like their larger cousins, the Mark IV Sentinels, these Prime Sentinels can be taken in pairs. So you can take 2 of them. The box will include 2 so you can maximize that out. These guys add another really interesting lower threat option for building out full rosters or full squads dedicated purely around the Sentinels themselves. All right. Moving on from this Crisis card pack, the new Crises and everything else, all of the documents that are going to be available later today, including the character rebalances, the updated core rulebook, and these cards. We, of course, have more repacks coming as well, as discussed at the start of Adepticon. So if there are characters that are still missing from your collection or you have been unable to get, know that those are still on the plan and will be rolling out over the course of the next year as well. One of the things that we did at Gen Con, speaking of events that we went to in person, is we surprised everyone by sneaking in a couple of Gamma-powered characters into the display case. I'm very excited to show you the full unit character pack for these guys, which is the Leader, Red Hulk, and Sensational She-Hulk. These characters will be coming out later next year onto your tables. Red Hulk does bring a brand new leadership and affiliation. Sensational She-Hulk is a brand new version of She-Hulk, and the Leader adds some pretty fun new tricks and powers to the affiliations that he slots into. So this will be a very, very exciting pack to see hit onto tables, and that Red Hulk is just incredible. He does have some alternate build options, including half of the smashed car that he can use to bludgeon you with if that's what you choose. So some cool hobby content and choice there. All right. Now, I need everyone to take a breath and prepare themselves, because what we're about to show you is one of the most highly anticipated mutant villains that we have been waiting internally to spring upon the community for quite some time. And it's the one and only Onslaught. Onslaught is going to be storming onto tables later next year. Glorious, absolutely glorious miniature. Perhaps one of my favorites from all the ones that we've shown. And that's a high bar because we've shown quite a bit of cool stuff. But if you're a Marvel vs. Capcom fan like myself, Onslaught is just one of those characters that is absolutely captivating. And it is super thrilling to finally be able to bring him to the game. He is one of the few characters that when we started the whole process, our lead developer, Will Pagani, was like, we have to do Onslaught. This character just looks cool. I don't even care what he does. And Onslaught is making his triumphant entrance into Marvel Crisis Protocol. He likely will have some things to say about the Sentinels. He'll likely have some things to say about the X-Men. He's got his own agenda, and he's an absolute monster. We also have some pretty cool terrain that's going to be coming next year, building out. Speaking of, the changes to terrain throws and how we're looking at really increasing the viability and interest on tables. The Dark Dimension terrain, which is coming in a number of different packs. This stuff is just eye-catching and glorious on the table, from the Dimensional Incursion, like Shumagorath style monster, to the Destroyed Sanctum, where Doctor Strange got a little too willy-nilly with his spells, to just more Dimensional Incursions. Seeing the stuff on a tabletop, it really sets the stage and brings everything together. There's some awesome one-shot cards that go with this to add additional rules to really get that Dimensional Incursion flair into your games. I can't wait for people to be able to see that. And the scale is just not done justice on these frames. Like these things, the Sanctum and the Dimensional Incursion, like Shumagorath style monster, they're massive. They're huge pieces. It's been really fun to be able to work on this and to just see more of the Marvel Universe be able to be reflected on the tabletop itself. And speaking about spooky and Dimensional Incursions, Crisis Protocol, even further into the future, will be getting a lot more spooky with Screamtacular characters, including the Orb, Blackheart, and Jack-O-Lantern. So a couple of deep cuts here for maybe some folks. Again, talking about that Marvel vs. Capcom, Blackheart, Marvel Superheroes. If you were a fan of that fighting game, you'll recognize Blackheart right away. Everyone's favorite thing about this pack, besides the Orb and how amazingly awesome he is, it's a giant eyeball man on a motorcycle. He's Ghost Rider's like #1 arch nemesis. Like, what more could you ask for? It's got to be the little devil doll on Jack-O-Lantern's base. We have a lot of folks internally who have claimed they are going to adopt that little guy when he shows up. But just a fun kind of cut into the Marvel Universe itself. Rounding out our future look of things to be excited for and coming before we do this all over again at Adepticon 2026 is the new Avengers are going to be making their entrance into the game, with Hulk and Wiccan Speed being in one side of it. And then we also have the pairing side, which is America Chavez, Kate Bishop, and Patriot. So not only do these characters bring the brand new Avengers affiliation with them, they also, of course, slot into several other affiliations, bringing a host of new tools and tricks and abilities that players can utilize within their rosters and their squads. It's been a joy to work on these as well. I know Josh himself has poured his heart and soul into these characters. He's a huge new Avengers fan, and it's just fun to finally get to these characters and bring them onto the tabletop itself. And with that, I believe that not only did I finish on time, which people were questioning, but we have come to the conclusion of everything we have to show you for this roadmap. Now, as I mentioned, AdeptCon in March 2026, we're going to do a whole nother roadmap with a whole bunch of new stuff, a whole lot of new looks, everything else going on. But thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate all of your passion, all of your excitement for these last 6 years, whether you're a new player or an old player. It's been a wild ride. We can't wait to do more. We're looking forward to continuing the rebalance program, to continuing to make this game the best it possibly can be, introducing new and exciting ways in which to engage and play with the game, and of course bringing all the exciting characters that have yet to see their time on the tabletop in the Marvel Universe to the game. Thank you again. Enjoy. Be sure to check out the website for all of the good article content and all of the documents that we talked about, ready and available for you to start playing with for free today. Till next time.